The girl who swore never to kneel. In the dusty heart of Komili village, where the sun baked the red earth and the rooster crowed louder than a town crier, lived a woman named Zula, and Zula was not like other women. She did not walk behind men. She did not bow her head in front of elders just because they had gray hair. And she surely didn't kneel to greet anyone, not even the chief of the land. If you wanted respect from Zula, you had to earn it. She was fire wrapped in beauty, a storm in human skin. Her tongue, sharp. Her eyes, unforgiving. Her presence, commanding. The village women whispered about her. That one, they said behind their wrappers, she's the type that slaps thunder and walks away smiling. Men admired her beauty, but feared her mouth. They said marrying Zula was like hugging a lion with perfume. You'd enjoy the scent, but risk losing your life. And maybe they weren't wrong. Zula had been married twice, and both marriages ended in disaster. Her first husband, Lufuno, had tried to control her. He was the kind of man who believed a wife should ask before breathing. One morning, he told her, "Zula, I don't like how you speak in public. Lower your voice. You are a woman." Zula stared at him with eyes that had buried kings in silence. "Then buy me a voice you like, Lufuno," she said, "because this one came with fire." That night, she packed his clothes and threw them out like rotten yam. He left. She didn't cry. The second husband, Danga, was richer. Big car, big house, and even bigger ego. He liked showing off Zula like a new phone. But one day, when his mother insulted Zula's cooking and said she had no home training, Danga stayed quiet. Zula didn't. She stood up, looked the woman straight in the face, and said, "If home training means kneeling for insults, then I was trained in a better home." The next morning, she was gone, left behind only a note, "I married a man, not a puppet." From then on, Zula made up her mind, no man would control her. No mother-in-law would shape her. No society would define her. She ran her own small tailoring shop. Designed clothes so good even the chief's daughter came secretly for fittings. Her money. Hers. Her house. Built it herself. Her rules. Unbendable. But behind all the thunder, Zula had a soft part, hidden deep, like honey under a rock. At night, when the market noise had faded and the moon was high, Zula would sit outside her house alone. No earrings. No hard face. Just a tired woman staring into the stars, asking them silently, "Will I ever be loved without being caged?" And then came Kwezi. He wasn't from Komili. He came from a neighboring town, Mwezo. He was tall, with eyes that spoke softly even when his mouth was quiet. He ran a small woodwork business. Didn't talk too much. Didn't walk with pride. Just moved like water, calm, clean, and deep. They met by chance. Zula's cousin was getting married and had ordered chairs from Mwezo. Kwezi came to deliver them. Zula was adjusting the bride's dress when she saw him carrying wood, sweat glistening on his forehead. He greeted her with a nod. She replied with a raised eyebrow. He smiled. She didn't. But that night, he came back, not for business, but to bring a forgotten toy. Or maybe just a reason to see her again. They sat. They talked. He didn't ask why she never smiled. He just listened. And for the first time in a long time, Zula laughed. Not the loud one she used to intimidate people, but the soft one. The one that made the wind pause. Days passed. Then weeks. He visited again and again. They spoke of dreams, fears, food, and foolish things. Zula didn't have to pretend. Kwezi never tried to shape her. He just let her be. One Sunday evening, as they walked near the river, Kwezi stopped under the old baobab tree and said, "Zula, I know your past is filled with fire. But maybe, with me, you can just be warm. Will you marry me? Zula stared at him. Her heart beat slow, then fast. She didn't believe in fairy tales. But somehow, this man felt different. Still, she looked him dead in the eye and said, "Let me say this once, Kwesi. If your mother thinks she can control me, I will remind her who I am. I don't kneel for trouble." Kwesi was quiet. Then he nodded. "I know who I'm marrying," he said. "I'm not looking for a woman to kneel. I'm looking for one who can stand beside me." That night, the stars blinked faster. Their wedding was small, no drums, no village parade. Just a pastor, 2 witnesses, and a promise. Zula wore a white dress she stitched herself. Kwesi wore a blue shirt with buttons shaped like cowries. No dancing. No shouting. Just 2 people who believed in each other, at least for now. They moved into Zula's house, rearranged a few things, painted the walls, planted hibiscus near the gate. For once, Zula smiled in her sleep. But peace is like a goat on a leash. It can walk away if not watched carefully. One morning, as Kwesi was fixing the doorbell, a car pulled up. The engine coughed, then died. The door opened. A woman stepped out, tall like trouble, eyes like dagger tips, lips thin like rope, wearing a wrapper that didn't move even in the wind. She carried a bag in one hand and a Bible in the other. Kwesi froze. Zula looked from the window and asked, "Who is that?" Kwesi swallowed slowly. That's my mother." The air changed. The birds flew away. The woman walked toward the house without smiling. And that was the day MaZimbi entered their lives. The shadow behind the smile. MaZimbi didn't enter their home like a visitor. She entered like a queen returning to a stolen throne. Her first words were not "good morning" or "how are you," but "you didn't sweep this veranda well, Zula. Dust is greeting me louder than you did." Zula blinked slowly. Not because she didn't hear, but because she was holding back the fire rising in her throat. MaZimbi walked past her, her wrapper making no sound, like a warning before a storm. She greeted Kwesi with a loud hug and a kiss on the cheek. "My son. My treasure. My crown. So this is where you've been hiding." Her voice rose like a bell calling for attention. Kwesi smiled awkwardly. "Mama, this is our home now." MaZimbi looked around the living room. Her eyes scanned every corner like a hawk looking for rats. She said finally. "It needs some fixing. But I'll help. I'll stay for a few days." Zula raised an eyebrow. "A few days." She didn't say anything, not yet. But that was the beginning. MaZimbi did not come to rest. She came to rule. By the second day, her bag was unpacked. Her clothes hung in the wardrobe. Her soap replaced Zula's in the bathroom. Her Bible rested on the dining table like it paid rent. She woke up before the rooster. By 4 a.m., the sound of her loud prayers bounced through the walls. "Holy Ghost fire. Any strange woman in my son's life, back to sender. Let no Jezebel settle in this house. Amen." Zula turned in her bed, face buried in her pillow, biting her tongue. On the 3rd day, MaZimbi entered the kitchen and poured out Zula's soup. "This is not soup," she said, wrinkling her nose. "This is colored water pretending to be food. Let me show you how a real wife cooks." She made her own stew and arranged the pots as if she built the kitchen herself. Zula didn't stop her. She washed. When Kwesi returned home, MaZimbi ran to the door with a plate in hand. "Taste this, my son. Just like when you were a boy. Real food. Not modern girl poison." Kwesi smiled politely. "It's nice, Mama." Zula said nothing. but she boiled inside. The neighbors noticed the change too. One day at the market, Zula overheard a woman whisper, "They say MaZimbi told her she doesn't kneel when greeting. Such a disrespectful wife." Another voice replied, "You know these city girls. No manners. Just makeup and loud mouth." Zula turned sharply. The women froze. She didn't say a word. Just stared. That was enough. They scurried off like rats caught near fire. But every word found its way into her heart. MaZimbi kept planting small seeds of chaos. She told visitors, "I'm just here to help. The girl is trying, but you know, not every woman is raised well. She means well, but she's still learning." Zula's blood boiled every time she heard it. Learning what? She asked herself. To be a servant in my own home. One night, as the rain tapped gently on the roof, Zula sat in the living room folding clothes. Kwezi was sitting beside her, smiling at something on his phone. MaZimbi walked in holding her waist dramatically. "Kwezi," she said, dragging the last syllable like a song. "I think I'm falling sick. My head is heavy. My chest is tight. Maybe it's this strange weather, or strange spirits." Kwezi stood up. "Mama, should I take you to the hospital?" "No, my son. Just stay with me. Don't leave me tonight." "But, we were going to travel tomorrow," he said, glancing at Zula. "We planned to visit Lake Senda. Just the two of us." MaZimbi sat on the sofa like a queen in pain. "It's okay. Go. Leave your sick mother. Maybe you'll return to a corpse." Kwezi sighed and turned to Zula. Zula didn't blink. Her hands paused mid-fold. Her voice was low, calm, and sharp. "If she dies because you left for one night, she was already dying before I met you." But Kwezi cancelled the trip. That night, Zula lay on the bed, her back to him. Her heart didn't beat. It hammered. Her chest was a drum of fury. But her voice was silent. She was not going to fight. She was going to plan. Flashback, MaZimbi's past. Long before Zula ever crossed paths with Kwezi, MaZimbi had lived her own battle. She was once a beautiful young bride, married to a man who had the strength of a lion and the heart of a crocodile. He beat her for smiling at neighbors. He locked the kitchen to punish her. He brought other women home and told her, "They cook better than you." She didn't leave. In her village, women endured. One day, after 10 years of silence, pain, and prayer, he fell sick and died. Some said it was karma. Others said it was a quiet curse. But MaZimbi never spoke of it. All she knew was this: no woman would ever hurt her son the way she was hurt. From the moment Kwezi was born, she wrapped her entire soul around him. He became her second chance. Her pride. Her only joy. She cleaned his wounds, washed his sleep, and whispered, "I will never let any woman take you from me." So every woman he brought home, she examined like a lion sniffing meat. They all failed. Until Zula. But Zula was not a girl you could whisper away. She didn't cry behind closed doors. She didn't gossip with neighbors. She didn't fight for attention. She just watched. Waited. And planned. Every time MaZimbi insulted her, Zula smiled tighter. Every time Kwezi looked confused, Zula looked calmer. But inside her chest, a volcano waited. One evening, Zula found herself standing in front of the mirror, her eyes hollow. "Who am I becoming?" she whispered. She had survived storms. Now, she was drowning in silence. She took a deep breath and picked up her phone. She didn't call anyone. She opened her notepad and began to write. Not a goodbye letter. Not a threat. A plan. In the following days, Zula became quiet, but not weak. She cooked, she cleaned, and she let MaZimbi win every small battle. But every night, she wrote in her notepad. She was documenting everything. The fake illness. The lies. The poison words. The insults. The manipulation. Zula was no longer reacting. She was preparing. And Kwesi. Poor Kwesi. He loved his wife. He respected his mother. But he was like a leaf in the wind, blown between two storms. Some nights, he would sit alone outside, staring at the moon. How did peace become war? He asked. But he didn't choose. And the longer he waited, the more damage was done. One morning, MaZimbi sat in the living room, proudly rearranging the flower vases Zula had carefully chosen. Zula stood at the doorway and said softly, "Mama, do you want tea?" MaZimbi laughed. "Tea won't fix your attitude." Zula smiled. "No, but it might calm yours." She walked into the kitchen, calm, focused, quiet like a lion before the pounce. Something was coming. And MaZimbi would never see it coming, the poison in the house. The days in Zula's home no longer had laughter. Only footsteps, whispers, and shadows that grew longer with every sunrise. The hibiscus by the gate had stopped blooming. The once warm kitchen now felt like a courtroom. And the scent of smoke was always in the air, though no fire could be seen. Zula moved through her own house like a stranger. She cooked, cleaned, greeted, but her smile was no longer alive. She carried silence like a basket full of thorns. One afternoon, as she placed a plate of food in front of MaZimbi, the older woman stared at it, then slowly pushed it away with the tip of her finger. "I'm not hungry," she said, eyes narrowed. Zula said nothing. MaZimbi sniffed the stew. Then she stood up dramatically. "What's this smell? What is that bitter scent? Did you mix something in this food?" Zula blinked. MaZimbi's voice rose. "Answer me, Zula. Or have your charm stolen your tongue too?" Kwesi walked in just as MaZimbi grabbed the plate and flung it to the ground. The soup splashed like spilled blood. "She's trying to poison me," MaZimbi shouted. Zula stared at her. Calmly. Coldly. But deep inside, her heart twisted. Kwesi's eyes darted between his wife and his mother. "Mama, stop, please. I said she's poisoning me. You think I don't know? I've been having headaches. My dreams are full of shadows. Something is not right in this house." Zula turned away. She walked to the sink and started washing her hands, like wiping off all the lies. MaZimbi hissed loudly. "One day, when you're lying cold on the floor, you remember I warned you." That night, Kwesi couldn't sleep. He sat in the living room, staring at the floor. Zula walked in, her face pale from exhaustion. She didn't speak. She just sat beside him. Close, but far. Kwesi finally said, "I know you're not trying to harm her. But things are getting bad. I need to do something." Zula raised an eyebrow. The next day, when MaZimbi went to the market, Kwesi took a tiny black camera from a brown envelope. He installed it carefully in the kitchen, behind the curtain, where no one would look. "If there's truth here," he whispered, "this camera will find it." As the weeks passed, Zula began to shrink, not in body alone, but in spirit. Her cheeks lost color. Her voice lost music. Even her laughter, once rare and beautiful, vanished completely. Each day, she wrote in her small notepad. One night, after MaZimbi insulted her in front of guests, Zula sat alone in her room and wrote a goodbye letter. It read, "Kwesi, I came here with hope. I carried love in my hands, but it burned me. Your silence has become louder than her words. I am not weak, but I am tired. Tell your mother she didn't defeat me. I just decided not to fight fire with fire anymore. Zula. She stared at the letter for a long time. Then she tore it into small pieces and flushed it down the toilet. Not yet, she whispered. Not like this. Then came the day that changed everything. MaZimbi was sitting in the living room with some family visitors from the village. Zula walked in with a tray of juice and handed each guest a cup. As she turned to leave, MaZimbi suddenly screamed. She hit me, she shouted, staggering back and holding her cheek. This girl slapped me. In front of everyone. The room froze. Zula turned around slowly. Her hands were empty. Her face was calm. Her eyes, deadly. I didn't touch you, she said. MaZimbi fell to the floor, wailing like thunder rolling over hills. She raised her hand. She insulted me. I am your mother. Is this how you treat your elders? The guests stood, confused and awkward. Some pulled MaZimbi up. Others looked at Zula, who didn't blink. Kwesi rushed in. What happened? MaZimbi pointed at Zula. Your wife slapped me like I'm one of her customers at the market. Kwesi looked at Zula. She stared at him without words. Her silence was heavy. Like judgment. The story spread faster than bushfire. By evening, half the village had heard. Zula slapped her mother-in-law. That girl is wicked. I always said she was trouble. No woman should lift her hand against her husband's mother. Even old Mama Titi, who couldn't walk properly, called her granddaughter and said, don't be like that Zula girl. She has no home training. At the market, women whispered behind her. Some even hissed as she passed. Zula walked like a stone statue. No smile. No tears. Just quiet rage. Even Kwesi became distant. He didn't speak much at dinner. He slept facing the wall. He didn't defend her anymore. One evening, Zula stood in front of her shop's mirror. She looked at her reflection, dark circles under her eyes, lips dry, face thin. Then she whispered to herself, I will not be killed in silence. I am not my mother. That night, she made pepper soup and set the table. Kwesi sat down without a word. After dinner, he sighed deeply. Zula, I think we should go to the village. For a while. Zula raised her eyes. Just for a break. Maybe fresh air will help, he added. And your mother, she asked. She wants to come. Zula didn't speak. She walked to the window, stared into the night, and said calmly, so be it. 2 days later, the sun was cruel and hot. The dust danced around their feet as they stood at the train station. Zula carried one bag. Kwesi carried two. MaZimbi had a box, a plastic collar, a wrapper tied over her shoulder, and a Bible tucked under her armpit. The train arrived, slow, long, breathing smoke like an old dragon. People began to board. MaZimbi rushed ahead and chose the seat beside Kwesi. She held his arm like it would run away. She looked at Zula with a sly smile, then patted the seat across from her. Zula sat. Eyes dry. Hands folded. Heart alert. As the train began to move, slowly leaving the city behind, the air inside the cabin grew thick. The tension didn't speak. It just sat there, between them, quiet, sharp, and deadly. The journey had begun. But so had something else. Something much darker. The train threw fire. The train groaned as it moved, slow and steady, like an old man dragging his feet through memory. The countryside stretched endlessly on both sides, trees bowed in the wind, farmlands resting under the weight of afternoon heat. Goats blinked at the passing coaches. Children ran beside the tracks, waving at the passengers inside. Inside cabin 3B, silence lived. Zula sat opposite MaZimbi, arms folded, lips tight, eyes staring out the window but seeing nothing. Quizzy sat between them, shoulder stiff, fingers tapping nervously on his knee. Every few minutes, he would clear his throat, hoping silence would answer back. It never did. MaZimbi shifted in her seat and pulled out a small cooler from under her wrapper. "My son," she said, loud enough for the whole row to hear, "I brought your favorite. Dried tilapia and cassava porridge. It's something proper." Zula turned her head slightly, still staring through the glass. Quizzy gave a tired smile. "Thanks, Mama, but I'm okay." MaZimbi hissed softly and threw a glance at Zula. "Better than the poison someone tried to feed you yesterday." A man sitting across the aisle raised his brow. A woman behind them quietly adjusted her seat, ready for drama. Zula still said nothing. The train clattered on, every metal click a reminder of the tension inside that small cabin. MaZimbi unwrapped her food and started eating loudly, smacking her lips with each bite. She stared at Zula between mouthfuls, like a lion daring its prey to move. "You know," she said between chews, "when I married my husband, I woke at 4 a.m., fetched water, cooked 3 meals, and greeted all the elders kneeling. That's how real wives behave. Not this, face like dry yam, full of pride." Still no answer. MaZimbi leaned closer across the small table between them. "Some women think silence makes them strong. But I know what it hides: disrespect, laziness, and charm." Quizzy coughed lightly. "Mama, please." MaZimbi raised a finger. "Let me speak. She must hear me today." Zula looked up, just for a second, then back at the window. Flashback, Zula's childhood. In that quiet moment, her mind flew back, many years ago. A little girl crouched in the corner of a mud hut. Her mother, Mama Decker, stood in the kitchen, tears falling into the pot she stirred. Outside, angry voices. "In-law. This too smells like insult," her aunt had shouted. "You're not even full, woman, you gave our brother only girls," another voice accused. Zula had seen her mother kneel in front of them, offering food with trembling hands. "Please eat. I made it with love," Mama Decker whispered. But they slapped the plate from her hands. That night, Zula had promised herself, "I will never kneel to insult. Not even if the whole world watches." And here she was now, grown, but still sitting opposite her mother's ghost, wearing a different face. Back in the train cabin, MaZimbi continued her public trial. She banged her spoon on the cooler. "Let me tell you people something. This girl is not a wife. She is a punishment." Zula looked at Quizzy. He looked down. Something inside her cracked. MaZimbi stood up, hand on her waist. "You sit there pretending to be innocent. But we know your kind, snakes with lipstick." Now passengers were fully awake. No more pretending to sleep. Even the train conductor slowed his steps as he passed. Quizzy stood. "Mama, please. Enough." But MaZimbi was just warming up. She pointed her finger inches from Zula's face. "Speak. Say something, witch." Zula slowly stood up. She looked her straight in the eyes and said softly, "I have said nothing all this while, not because I fear you, but because I don't want to become you." Gasped around the cabin. MaZimbi's eyes bulged. "What did you say to me?" Zula stepped back. Her hands were shaking. "I said, I don't want to be like you, loud, bitter, and broken." MaZimbi's scream sliced through the air. "You disrespectful goat." She raised her hand. Quizzy shouted, "Mama, don't." But the hand flew. Zula saw it coming. And caught it in the air. She didn't push. She didn't hit back. She just held it. Firm. Steady. Like stopping a storm with bare hands. MaZimbi's face twisted with rage. She tried to pull away, but her body shifted too far. Her feet stumbled. Her back hit the metal bar behind her. And just then, the train jolted slightly. The cabin door beside her had been left slightly open, just enough. Her heel caught the edge. She slipped. Her hand missed the grip. And in the blink of an eye, MaZimbi fell backward, out of the moving train. Screams. Shouts. The train didn't stop. It couldn't. Not yet. People rushed to the door. Someone fell out. Oh my God. Pull the alarm. A man grabbed the emergency lever. The train screeched as it slowly began to break. Zula stood frozen. Her arms still in the air. Her lips parted. But no sound. Kwesi stared at her. You pushed her, he whispered. Zula shook her head slowly. I didn't. I just stopped her from hitting me. The passengers murmured. One woman shouted, I saw her raise her hand first. Another replied, but she blocked it. Maybe they were fighting. Kwesi stepped back, eyes wide with fear and confusion. Then someone in the back shouted the final blow. That woman is dead. The eye that never blinks. The train hadn't even stopped fully when the police arrived. Uniformed men stormed into the cabin, pushing through curious passengers and heavy silence. Who is Zula? One of them barked. She raised her hand slowly. Stand up, they ordered. She rose, calm as ever, eyes steady, lips sealed. Her wrapper was neat, her hands relaxed. You are under arrest for attempted murder, the officer said, clicking cold handcuffs around her wrists. Kwesi shouted, wait, no, it was an accident. She didn't push her. But the officers didn't listen. Police don't listen to confusion. They dragged Zula out of the cabin like she was a criminal caught stealing life itself. She didn't fight. She didn't cry. She didn't even blink. The wind hit her face as the train slowed to a stop at the small village station. Zula stood by the police van, hands cuffed behind her, hair dancing in the breeze like a warrior's banner. Children whispered. Passengers stared. One woman muttered, she looks like she's proud of what she did. Kwesi stood on the platform, eyes hollow, heart breaking. He didn't follow her into the van. He just watched. And the van drove away with his wife, and the truth still trapped in silence. Meanwhile, in the bushes. 3 kilometers back, in the thick green where the train had passed, a small search team combed through the underbrush. A faint moan broke the silence. Over here, someone shouted. They found MaZimbi lying twisted between weeds and broken sticks. Her wrapper was torn, her head bleeding, her leg bent at an impossible angle. But she was alive. Barely. A paramedic rushed to her side. MaZimbi's voice came out like smoke from old fire. She tried to kill me. They carried her into an ambulance. As they drove away, she whispered the same words over and over. Zula pushed me. Zula pushed me. Zula pushed. Back at the town station. Zula sat alone in a cold, dusty police cell. The light above her flickered. The wall smelled of old sweat and rust. She rested her head against the wall, eyes wide open. Outside, whispers floated in like smoke. Did you hear? She finally snapped. They say she slapped the mother-in-law, then threw her out. Her anger has finally eaten her soul. Zula heard every word. But her face remained still. She had been hated before. She had been judged before. But this time hurt differently. She had no voice left to defend herself. Only silence. And silence, too, was tired. Back home in the city. Kwesi sat in the living room, staring at the empty couch. His mother's Bible still lay on the table. Her slippers by the door. Her cooler open in the kitchen. But her voice? Gone. His wife's scarf still hung on the chair. Her phone lay charging. Her scent still floated through the house like perfume refusing to leave. But her presence vanished. Quizzy's mind was a storm. He walked to the kitchen, leaned against the wall. Then he remembered. The camera. He had installed it weeks ago, hidden behind the window curtain. He rushed to his phone. Opened the security app, scrolled back. And there it was. Footage of his mother. Faking a fainting spell in front of the neighbors. Footage of her standing alone, scratching her own arm and running to him shouting, "Zula hit me." Footage of her pouring out food, whispering, "This will make them hate her." Quizzy's hand trembled. He slumped into a chair. Tears stung his eyes, but they didn't fall. He stood up. He knew what he had to do. The journey to truth. Quizzy traveled straight to the town's police headquarters. He didn't stop to eat. He didn't stop to breathe. He walked in holding his phone tight. "Officer, please. I need to show you something," he said. They looked up, unimpressed. He begged. "Please. My wife is innocent." They finally took the phone. Watched the kitchen footage. And their eyes widened. "We need train footage," one officer said. So they requested it. An hour passed. Then 2. The footage came in from the train company. Inside the control room, 3 officers, a supervisor, and Quizzy watched. Frame by frame. They saw the cabin. They saw Zula sitting quietly. They saw MaZimbi shouting. They saw the raised hand. They saw Zula block it. They saw no push. Only a stumble. A slip. A fall. Then screams. Then dust. Silence filled the control room. Quizzy broke it with one word. "Release her." Back at the cell. Zula sat in the corner, her wrist sore from the metal. Her eyes closed. Her heart still. Then the cell door creaked. Quizzy walked in, breath shallow, guilt dripping from every pore. She opened her eyes. He fell to his knees. "I saw the video," he whispered. Zula blinked. "I'm sorry," he added. "I should have believed you. I didn't protect you." She didn't reply. He lowered his head. A tear dropped to the floor. Finally, she whispered, "It wasn't your silence that hurt me, Quizzy. It was your hesitation." The silence of regret. Zula stepped out of the police station just as the morning sun broke the clouds. Her wrists were sore from the cuffs. Her eyes heavy from hours without sleep. But her back was straight. Her steps firm. She didn't smile. But she didn't bow. People stood nearby, onlookers, market sellers, town gossipers. They watched her pass in silence. Some turned their heads away. Some whispered, "She's free." Just like that. But Zula didn't look at them. She was no longer walking through a world that doubted her. She was walking through fire, but she had not burned. Quizzy waited by the car. His eyes were swollen from tears. His shirt was crumpled. His pride was broken. He rushed forward. "Zula." She raised her hand gently. "Not here." He stopped. She entered the car without another word. As the engine started, she looked out the window and whispered only to herself. "Let them talk. My soul is tired, not guilty." Back home, the house looked the same. But to Zula, it felt like a place filled with ghosts. Ghost of her trust. Ghost of her patience. Ghost of who she used to be. She entered slowly, her feet bare, her scarf wrapped around her head like a crown. The curtains still hung. The pots were still in the kitchen. MaZimbi's Bible still sat on the table like a false witness. Zula picked it up. She placed it in a drawer. Locked it. Then she stood in the center of the living room, closed her eyes, and let the silence wrap around her like cloth. She was home. But her heart was still somewhere else, picking up the pieces of a trust shattered. Later that day, at the hospital, MaZimbi lay in a quiet room, white sheets covering her bruises. Her leg was wrapped. Her arm stiff. Her head bandaged. She looked out the window, at the birds flying freely. But her body would not rise. Kwesi walked in, slow steps, no smile. She turned, forced a small cough. "My son," she said softly. "Thank God you're here." "That girl." "Stop." Kwesi's voice cut the air like a machete through plantain stem. MaZimbi's mouth trembled. "I was only trying to protect you." Kwesi walked to the window. "You weren't protecting me, Mama. You were controlling me." She looked down. "I lost your father to a woman like her. Beautiful. Bold. Loud. He loved her more than me." Kwesi turned slowly. "You didn't lose him because of her. You lost him because you never healed." MaZimbi blinked. "You hated her, and carried that hate for years. You poured it into me like hot oil. Every woman I loved, you burned." She turned her face away. "I didn't mean to. But you did." He stepped forward, eyes wet, voice cracking. "You didn't just lose my father. Mama, you lost yourself. And then, you nearly made me lose Zula." She tried to speak. Words failed her. Kwesi placed an envelope on the table. "In there is your discharge paper," he said. "I've arranged for you to be taken back to the village. Uncle Jumba will receive you. You'll rest there." MaZimbi sat up slightly. "And when I return?" "You won't." Her lips parted. No sound. "You will not return to this house. Not for naming. Not for funeral. Not for blessing. Not for peace." He turned to leave. She called weakly, "Kwesi, please." But he was already at the door. He paused, then said over his shoulder, "If you truly love me, Mama, let me live free." Back home. The first few days were quiet. Zula didn't ask for explanations. Kwesi didn't offer too many. He cooked sometimes. She washed the dishes without being asked. They passed each other like strangers, but not enemies. One night, he sat beside her, not speaking. Then softly, "I'm sorry." She nodded. "Not just for doubting you, but for letting my silence speak louder than my loyalty." Zula looked at him. "I don't need a man to defend me. I only need him not to betray me." He took her hand. "Can we start again?" She didn't say yes. But she didn't pull her hand away. Weeks passed. Then months. They laughed again, small laughs at first. Zula planted new hibiscus by the gate. Kwesi repaired the broken window lock. She made his favorite stew on his birthday. He danced with her under the full moonlight, barefoot on the porch. Trust returned like rain after drought, drop by drop. Not perfect, but peaceful. Final scene. One afternoon, Zula came back from the market. She stepped inside, barefoot, wrapper tied tight. She paused at the door, looked around the house. The table was clean. The curtains danced with the breeze. No insult. No spying. No fake sickness. Just quiet. Just home. She placed her basket down. Closed her eyes. And whispered to the air. "This house will have peace now, even if I must fight for it with silence." Moral of the story. Bitterness may start with protection, but it always ends in destruction. If peace is a guest, let it stay. Feed it. Water it. and never chase it out.